Okay, so thanks for everybody on this gloomy Thursday here in London, but Cons is very excited to provide today's educational webinar with our marketing expert, Allison Barani. And we're going to be talking about social media tips for your business during COVID and post-COVID. So I've gone through the slide deck with Allison, so I'm really excited to share this content out to everybody today. So Allison is the founder and CEO of The Creative Co. She has 13 years of experience leading marketing initiatives in pharmaceutical sales throughout Canada and Australia. She's surrounded by a family of entrepreneurs, so she really understands that what it takes to and what business owners need, especially in the small business market. Allison provides tailored marketing strategies to fit your needs and marketing budget. And I know firsthand, as she handles Constance's brand and their vision, she really understands the marketing initiatives that we want to put, and she really puts that out in a very professional way. So thank you to Allison for joining us today, and I'm very excited for this to get out to you guys, and hopefully it'll be of some value to you. Before I get her to talk, I'm going to do a couple polls here. One is just in regards to how many of you use social media currently to promote your business? So I'm going to launch this poll, and once you guys will share the results. Okay, so 86% of the people on the call do use social media. Okay, and then I'll launch one more just to get the ball rolling here. And then the next one was, what social media platforms do you use most? A lot of people, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or all of the above. I'll give it another second here and I'll share these results. I don't think I did that in the last one. Okay, so there you go. So most people use Facebook, followed up by Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Okay, that's great. So with that, I'll hand it over to Allison here, and she'll take us through social media marketing.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really wanted to thank Contis Group for inviting me to chat about some things that we've kind of all been experiencing and some new things as well with COVID-19. So obviously it's not norm right now with marketing. So we wanted to show you how you can pivot and maybe capitalize on this really interesting and difficult time for a lot of people and pivot your marketing so that you're actually still getting your brand out there, getting your name out there. So why social media matters right now. Obviously, instantly we're allowed to update customers, give them more information about the different protocols you have right now as a part of COVID-19. So instant updates are really important, and social media is the best way to communicate with your customers at this point. So COVID's fast moving, and your method of communication better be as well, because as we see every day, we're getting new information. Every day they're adding new protocols and parameters to what business looks like in the future in terms of healthcare or protecting your staff, as well as those people that are coming in to do business with you. So one thing we want to keep in mind is that social media, typically you're talking to your customers, but right now we want to talk with your customers and have them talk to one another via your brand. So we want your brand to be the vessel that people are relating with, and they're sharing stories and they're collaborating with one another through your brand on your social channels. Social media should be engaging and really cognizant of what's going on in the world. So at this point, throwing out a lot of messaging about sales or promoting products may be a little insensitive. So we're just going to look at what type of strategy would be best right now during these unique times. One valuable thing you can do is actually offer resources. So tools that can help your current as well as future customers, whether that's directly related to your brand or if you can provide some self-care tips, because right now mental health and being able to stay healthy at home when people are trying to navigate this new world has been a really big challenge. So providing resources that people find incredibly valuable is going to be a great tool during this time. And you may find new customers as a result of some goodwill. And I actually have an example within this presentation that we're doing today where I can show that to you. So I'm pretty excited about it. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to actually talk about creating a strategy. Social media platforms 101. Ryan let us know that basically a lot of you are already utilizing social media, which is fantastic. The level of which we don't know, but we can always bridge the gap between people who are brand new users and people who have been around the block a time or two. We'll actually go in and talk about social media 101, what that looks like during a pandemic, the types of content you should be posting, what time you should post, and I also have a top 5 things that I'd really like you guys to do today if you haven't already done it. So, do you have a strategy? That should have been one of our poll questions actually, Ryan, is who actually has a marketing strategy and what does that look like? You know, right now, is your website reflecting information about COVID and your new business practices? And are your social media efforts really reflecting all the changes that have happened to your business? So your business could have been completely shut down, or maybe now you're doing curbside, or appointment-wise, you're able to accept future appointments, but not conduct any current appointments. So there's a lot of information that we need to share with your customers, and evaluating your current strategy and how you're currently talking to customers and updating that with your new COVID routines and plans is the best way to do it. Also, if you have a plan, is it written down and is it being updated? And if it is, let's pivot that and create a new pandemic or COVID plan for the future so that you are actually prepared should something like this happen again, or maybe wave 2 of COVID-19. We'll see what that looks like in the fall, it looks like. So do you have a strategy and a focus? And how frequently are your focuses or your strategies changing? Perhaps you're adding in layers as the year goes on. It's really interesting to have all of your facets within marketing align with your sales team, your sales force, or whoever that is, to make sure all of your messaging is consistent. And are you leveraging your existing customers for the new opportunities? So looking at email lists and your social media followers, and really taking advantage of the people who are familiar with you and making sure you are really communicating the clear message about what business looks like for you right now to those people. And if you aren't already on socials, now's the time to embark on that journey. I think it's a great time to really take advantage of some of the downtime that people have, and get started with the things that have always been on the to-do list but haven't quite made it to the very top. As business owners, or anybody who's really looking at doing social media for business, it could be a side gig or a side hustle. You've always got a list of things that don't always get completed every single day. And I'm sure social media is usually pretty low on the list. So now's a great time to get familiar. So are you on Facebook? But is your business on Facebook? Sounds like mostly everybody who's on this webinar right now are on Facebook. So are you on Instagram? And is your target audience on Instagram? So that's the prime factor, is indicating, you know, looking at that demographic and figuring out, is my target audience really on Instagram? And is Twitter still popular? I don't love Twitter, but I feel like there's a place for it. So we'll get in and we'll talk a little nitty-gritty about Twitter. TikTok is one that has recently come up, and with COVID, people have more time and more energy to be making these fun videos. The thing to keep in mind as a business owner is whether or not your target audience is on TikTok. So the target is from ages 16 to 24. So if you're a business owner who are trying to market to university students, yes, it makes sense for your business. You know, if you're doing if you're a pharmacy, for example, and you're creating, you know, materials, is that going to be your demographic? I don't think so. So let's make content on platforms that make sense for your business. And one other thing we want to make sure we're doing is leveraging LinkedIn. So it's no longer just for job seekers. And if you are a B2B business, that is definitely an area that you need to look at and leverage your LinkedIn profile. So we'll just jump into hashtags just to make sure everybody's on the same page for how to utilize them. You can actually promote and attract a new audience with hashtags. So hashtags can be utilized on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. And I really think you should leverage those, especially your localized hashtags. So let's get into what this slide says. So anyone who's posting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn can use a hashtag. So what this does is actually catalog all of the posts where that particular hashtag have been used. So that allows for connections and networking and audience building. The reason why it's so great for localized traffic is because it keeps it relevant. So that means if you're trying to grow your business locally and you're using LDNONT or 519 LDN, London has a whole slew of hashtags that people use to localize. And as long as you're using a few of them, you will find other businesses and other people located in your area. And if you click on that hashtag, you can see other business owners who have done that, or other people within the area in the region that are utilizing those hashtags, and it helps you build your network. So you can also follow hashtags. That's primarily on Instagram. So if you go into hashtags within Instagram, you can actually follow LDNONT and 519 LDN. So anybody who's using those tags, you can actually search and it'll periodically show up in your newsfeed that someone's tagged that, and you're starting to see some new content that may not already be in your feed. The one thing I want to say is we should really avoid the obvious grabs. So it's follow for follow or double tap, or the basic ones that so many people are doing just to grow their network, right? More is mostly better as well. So let's be mindful when we are posting between platforms. Yes, it's okay to utilize your content on multiple platforms, but you really need to scale back your hashtags. Maximum on Instagram is 30, so you can use all 30 on Instagram. But when you post that same message to Facebook and to LinkedIn, it looks a bit messy. So I like to use like 3 to 5 maximum on those two platforms and maximize Instagram, because that's how you'll get your new following. So Facebook page basics, we'll just go through this very quickly because it seems like everybody's got a lot of knowledge in this area. Obviously, you got to post your contact info, your hours, a link to your website, your cover photo. A lot of people forget that that is really excellent real estate. And if you have periodic promotions going on, swap out your cover photo as well, because that gives you additional exposure when people are coming to your page. Photos and videos can be posted here. Promotions, events, the shop feature is a great one that a lot of people are now starting to utilize that hadn't before, because they're pivoting their business. As COVID has changed the business landscape, they're now starting to do, like I was mentioning before, curbside pickup or online ordering that they hadn't had before. So if you can actually activate the shop feature on Facebook, people will go directly to that channel. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind with the shop feature is if you plan to utilize it on Instagram, you have to activate it on Facebook first. They work in tandem together because Facebook now owns Instagram. So those need to work in succession. Ads are always amazing, and I love Facebook and Instagram ads. That is definitely the biggest bang for your buck. So I could do a whole webinar just on Facebook and Instagram ads and why I love them and how we can look at insights, but we'll maybe save that for another time. Also reviews. So one of the things that people can do right now is support small business by conducting reviews of them. Maybe they can't do business with you right now because you're still shut down. Government hasn't quite opened up all the phases where everybody is able to continue business as usual. However, customers who are really engaged with you and love your business and want to support you in this time of need, asking for a review right now is ideal. So whether that's a Google review or a Facebook review, asking them to support you, I think that's very noble, and I don't think anybody would be offended as a customer if a small business asks them to do that right now. So keep that in mind. One tip is when you actually are posting to Facebook and you've got a post up there and you've got 20 likes, and you go into looking at who did all the likes for your page, right? You can actually invite them to follow your page if they haven't already. So let's not forget to capitalize on those people who are engaging with your brand and make them a true follower of your brand. Instagram basics. So I love Instagram because it's a great visual platform, gives you a really broad audience. You can really connect with everybody else, cross promote, tag, you can tell a story, and they're always incorporating new things that you can do on Instagram to help better build your brand. So the best thing to do is tell a story, right? Let's use video or Instagram stories to really depict what's going on in your world right now. You know, is that somebody coming and doing a curbside pickup, or documenting what's going on in your business during this time? Because again, people want to hear from you. They just want to make sure that you're okay, that you're still going to be in business when everything gets back to normal. And I think if you can showcase what you're going through and start building that rapport again with them and making sure that they're aware of all the things that have changed within your business practice. I love Instagram stories for that, and any of those IG live. They've really taken the ability to talk to who you want to talk to or talk with them, and they've elevated that. So I love Instagram for that. Don't forget to put the highlights on your profile as well if you do have products or things you want to showcase. That's like a real great business aspect, being able to categorize your products or your services that you offer. So don't forget that as well. We talked briefly about the shop feature. So enable that if that's an area that you can actually utilize for your business. So I thought I'd bring in a fun localized example. So this is Pub Melosh, and I don't know if anybody is familiar with the brand or following them on Instagram, but I think they've done a really excellent job of pivoting their business model and trying to engage with customers and patrons who typically frequent their restaurant and bar on the regular, right? So what I love about this is the owner. I'm assuming this is Melosh. I didn't get that deep into the story, but he's been actually trying to engage his customers with silly things. It's all about creating fun, making people feel good right now, and adding a little pizzazz. You know, he's got some time right now, it looks like, to be able to come up with all these unique ideas. So he's got his brand identity. He's keeping it fun. There's a great mix of his face and these costumes, in addition to in his slide deck that he's got going on, in this carousel of images. The first is the picture, the second is the menu of the day, and the third is typically either a wine or a spirit or beer that they're selling for that particular day. So again, he's pushing products, but it's not so in your face. It's like, hey, look at my funny video. And then page 2 is going to be the menu. Page 3 is, you know, additional products, should you be interested. But I think he's done a great way of keeping this fun and lighthearted. And I think he was actually featured on the news as a result of this. So, you know, thinking outside the box, trying to make it fun. Everybody's in a funk, so if you can make somebody giggle, then great, good on you. The other thing is to add Instagram stories to mix it up, just to make sure you're getting that captive audience as well. So it's also a great time to explore Instagram ads as well as Facebook ads, because people have more time. It's proven that people are scrolling more than ever before. So if we can actually target in on your prime group of target market, that would be ideal. So obviously you can target utilizing all of these things that we've got listed on the screen here. One thing I want to note is the connections field. So you can actually do a lookalike audience and be able to find people who are exactly like your current followers on your Facebook platform, which I think is amazing, because usually if you've got an audience or a captive audience and you can expand that to people who are like-minded, they're going to be pretty easy customers to win over. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, if you activate Facebook events, I don't know how many people utilize Facebook events, but this is an excellent way to grow your network, because when somebody says that they're attending your event, it shows up on all of their friends' news feeds that they're going to your event. So it's a great way of maximizing your small audience that can grow into a bigger audience. And then Twitter basics. Like I said before, I don't super love Twitter. The reason is because I feel like if you were to start a brand new Twitter account today, you really wouldn't get the leverage that people got 15, 20 years ago. I don't even know if it was 20 years, maybe 15 years. We'll give it 15 with Twitter. So right now you can maximize 280 characters, do a brief description. You can follow relevant users, retweet. I find Twitter to be incredibly high maintenance. I think that's probably why I don't love it as much. It's so fast moving that I feel like you need to be managing it throughout the day, you know? So that's again a reason why I'm not in such great love with Twitter. There are a lot of benefits. So you can easily send traffic to your website. So you can use it as kind of a springboard to drive that traffic to your website, which is something we actually do at Consys. So we've got a Twitter account at Consys, and we just try to drive the traffic to the website. It helps you keep abreast of the buzz that's going on in the industry. So if something is happening, you'd be first to know if you're following all the relevant hashtags on Twitter. And it helps you establish credibility, because if you can actually answer some industry related questions on Twitter, you'll quickly establish some credibility. But again, there's that high maintenance factor. So I completely understand if people don't love Twitter. LinkedIn. Now, if you are B2B, you absolutely need to be on LinkedIn with a personal profile in addition to a business profile. I just feel like it's not for job seekers anymore. It's a great way for networking to happen from one business to another. So keep that in mind if you don't have a company page on LinkedIn. You can join targeted industry groups, which will really help catapult your business page. You can invite people to follow your business page. So all of your connections, if you're an administrator on LinkedIn page, it allows you to really open up your network and let them know, hey, I've invited you to my page. Don't forget to follow it. You can share and quote industry related articles, as well as contribute and answer things related to those articles, which again lets everyone know that your expertise in the field and sets you up to be kind of like an ambassador for whatever industry you're in. So you can build your endorsements, and you can post resources and valuable content here as well. Again, if you've got blog posts or any of that great content, that'll drive it back to your website, which is the ultimate goal. So you can capture, those new customers that way. So yeah, we talked about how it'll build your professional network, and I think anybody, whether you're a pharmacist or a construction owner, any of that stuff, I think there's value within that platform. So don't overlook that one. So here's a fun example of somebody who's getting creative right now amid COVID-19. So my friend Dave Galloway owns DJ Alpha Productions. And obviously, as a wedding DJ, his whole business was sidelined as a result of no mass gatherings, because obviously that's how COVID spreads. So he really took a look at his business and decided to pivot. And his idea was to come up with these awesome dance parties a few times a week, where he's got different versions happening. He's kept his audience entertained with, there's everything from family dances to decades to country to collaborations with a fitness instructor, to really keep things exciting and interesting and lots of different people engaged. He's showing his empathy because he's trying to make light of the situation, totally understands that his business is on hold for the next little while, this being prime wedding season also. So, he's doing a goodwill gesture by bringing some fun to a lot of people and making some new fans and followers along the way, as well as, sharing this with other business owners. So I really respect and admire the way that he's staying relevant during COVID-19. And I think that getting creative is just a really excellent way of keeping you mainstream and having your customers really think about you. Some good news that came from his dance parties that he's had is he was actually featured on CBC News. So he got some really positive PR from doing the Children's Museum dance party, and they picked up the story and ran with it. So you know what, that may plant the seed for some future customers for him down the road. And I'm really proud of my friend for, you know, coming up with these cool ideas and these unique ways of staying relevant. The other thing you want to do is actually be intentional. So we got to rely heavily on empathy at this time. I mean, we touched on this earlier. We want to make sure that we're being cognizant of what people are going through. You know, are they now dealing with working from home? Do they have kids to keep busy during the day in addition to trying to hold down a full-time work from home atmosphere? And are they trying to stay fit and healthy while they're in quarantine and they're just struggling? I personally, I know that I'm struggling with trying to keep all of these balls in the air at the same time. So it's nice to know that there's businesses out there that can provide some tips on how to stay fit and healthy during this time. Or Dave's, you know, dance party, it knocked my kiddo out. He had a great time. So, I mean, building energy and all of this around things that can actually help your customer base, I think is things they're going to remember down the road. So planting that seed for future business and offering something that can make people's lives a bit easier at this time is the greatest way, I think, of being intentional during this time. The other thing you should do maybe is explore some new ideas. So maybe if you've never used Instagram stories or Instagram Live, now's the time to test it out. Not everybody has as much time, but a lot of people do find themselves with a little bit of extra time. Maybe they're saving on commute. But either way, it's a great opportunity to springboard into something that you weren't comfortable trying before. So get comfortable with that video, because if you take the time to learn it now, when we're back to normal, it'll actually be second nature, and you'll be able to whip together Instagram stories or IG Live that much quicker because it'll be second nature. Have some fun with polls and Q&A. Do a little data mining and figuring out what maybe your customers would like to see from you when business resumes. You know, it's a great opportunity to engage with them, to really manage that communication, because again, you may have some extra time to do a little digging and figuring out maybe what's next for your business. Maybe there's a new avenue that you haven't explored yet, and you can do a little Q&A and do a little data mining with your current customers to figure out what that looks like. Listening to your customers as well as managing any comments is a great one. Just to, again, gauge where they're at. What would they like to see from you? How can you change? How can you do better? What added service would be best for your business? Creating that user-generated content, I think, is going to be the best. We touched on that earlier with Facebook reviews and Google reviews. You can also ask them to conduct videos using your product and then tagging you in it to gain new fellowship, new following, all of that. And collaboration. So if there's another small business owner, you know, then try to hook up and see how you guys can collaborate together with some fun idea that could maybe share your followers or get some new customers up in your business. So what time to post? This is a challenging one, actually, because as we know, the world has shifted and so has your audience behavior. So what would have worked for you in January of 2020 is not necessarily what's going to work for you in May of 2020. So let's consider your audience demographic. Are they parents of young children, or retired, or university students? I think it's best to actually think about how your own routine has changed and then identify what that would look like to somebody else. So some general assumptions right now are that most people are going to bed a bit later than normal, and they're sleeping in a bit longer because, let's be honest, most of us are saving on commute. So you've got a little extra time in the morning. So I would probably shift what your regular posting time was in, say, January of 2020, I'd probably shift it like 2 to 3 hours further ahead. So if you used to post at 7, I'd post at 10, that kind of stuff, just to shift that mindset to keep with your audience a little bit. And then thinking local. So there's a few things we've talked about before about localized hashtags, building your audience relationships with people within your area, right? If you do business just within, for example, London proper, setting the location on your Instagram post will be really helpful to do that. Discover and use that localized hashtags. We mentioned a few already today. So 519 LDN if you're in London, that's a great one to start using. And then following local businesses and liking and commenting on their posts. This shows support and camaraderie now more than ever, in addition to afterwards. You know, it's always nice to support small business owners. I can think of one that I work with right now in St. Thomas. She's amazing and wanted to support everybody during this crazy time, knowing that, you know, she's a small business owner and understanding what they're going through. She decided to do a support local series on her Instagram. So twice a week, there's businesses that are featured and she does a little shout out to them. And I really admire that. I think it's excellent business practice and it shows that you're, you know, your goodwill. So if you can find your local hashtags, find a local business and see which tags they use. That's a great way of doing it if you're not sure of which hashtags you should start using. And you can actually search hashtags to find different ones. So if anybody has questions about that, we can connect afterwards because, again, I could talk about hashtags probably for its own webinar series. So we won't do that. The other thing I just want to really drive home this point of don't let your ego determine your followers. You know, it's great to have a few thousand followers because I feel like people like to say that they have a few thousand followers, but unless they're bringing you dollars to your business, it doesn't necessarily matter, right? So our goal is to get businesses or customers following you that are actually going to do business with you, that are going to bring you money. And that's always my goal for my clients that I work with. And that should be your goal as a business owner. So one little tip is keeping the story behind local products. I think people right now really want to support local. We talked about that small business mindset and supporting one another. And research actually shows that nearly 9 in 10 consumers say that if they know where a product came from and the story of its producer, it makes them more inclined to purchase the item. So don't be afraid to hop on your Instagram stories and really share. I know one company that I really admire that's done a phenomenal job recently is Hemans, and they've reinvented themselves. They have really it's a younger couple that owns Hemans now, and they've really showcased what they're doing, how they're doing. I think they have like a beer that they brew now or a cider. So they've really branched out and they've communicated in a really excellent way and brought in probably new customers that thought of Hemans as like, you know, where your mom went to go get strawberries or all of that stuff. So they've really expanded their business and they've done a really great job at it because they're sharing their personal stories. So also one thing to keep in mind is the larger the shopper's monthly spend, the more likely they are to purchase from a storied product. So providing the origin of your product is a really great way to get into that lucrative local market. So we're going to shift gears a little bit into post-pandemic marketing. So what that looks like for you, and maybe now's the time to start planning some of those phases. So once everything is back to normal, you can really establish your brand and your website and get some other tools working for you. So you're planting that seed for better business when everything gets back to normal. So I really love branding photography, and there's a few reasons why I love this. One, it gives you really beautiful images to utilize on both your website as well as on your social channels. And just to take it one level further is there's personal, you know, there's people in the photos. So people get familiar with you straight away. If you're not super comfortable with being on video, photography is a great way to catapult into that world, right? So this is actually a client of mine in Regina. His name's Jaron. He's a great guy. And he hired this branding firm to actually come in and do branding photography that he's utilized all through his social media, all through his website, and they come back quarterly. So we'll get into this. So familiarity, fresh photos for social profiles, it's updating your website. It's the best way to freshen a website and showcases your offerings because you can, if you've got a new service or a product, you can showcase that within the photography. So I include, this one is specific to pharmacy. So he's got action shots, staff shots, products, lab, compounding side, and the patient side. So one little tip I have is if you book the same photographer for future sessions, one, you'll be more comfortable with them next time, and two, you'll have that brand consistency across, and you're always getting that fresh photography for the next time you want to do up your social channels or update your website. So speaking of websites, they're a must-have today. I feel like everybody on this webinar right now probably has a website, whether it is, you know, the fanciest website in town, doesn't really matter. At this point, you just need a presence, and you need to be able to update it with recent and constantly flowing information, whether that is a link to your social media or on the website itself. So keep that in mind when you're building a website is, do you have the keys? Are you able to update it with ease, or do you have access to somebody in your world who can do that for you with kind of a quick turnaround? If not, then I encourage you to put your social media feed showing on your website so that you've got that information about COVID-19 or whatever that looks like in the future for your business, and people can actually see that first off, right, when they're coming to your site. So one little trick is to review competitor sites for inspiration. So if you don't quite know where to start with your website, do a Google search and see what everybody else is doing, and then decide from there what you like and what you don't like. Think outside the box with color and design. Just because healthcare is typically blue or green doesn't mean that it always has to be blue or green. You can think outside the box and start using different colors and just make a beautiful site regardless. Make brand your showcase, and don't be afraid to show brand identity. So if your brand is kind of a bit different and you've got a bit of a personality, it's totally okay to showcase that within your website. And I think it should be a part of your brand identity going forward. Again, I could talk about brand for an entire webinar series, so we won't get into that right now. But if you do have questions, you can definitely reach out to me at any time about that. Always include staff profiles and a blog component if you can, because staff profiles make people familiar before they've come into your business. They've seen a face, they're familiar, it adds that level of comfort. And a blog component actually helps add for organic SEO searching. So if you've got new, fresh content being added to a blog, you're going to hit higher when it comes to Google search. So keep that in mind, as well as contact information, again, links to all the social media accounts you have, as well as any video, because video also bodes well for organic SEO. One big component of website is making sure that it's mobile optimized. So 65% of emails are now opened on a smartphone or tablet. So if you are sending emails, whether it's MailChimp or whatever platform you use, make sure you're looking at the mobile optimized version as well before you send it out, just to make sure people are having a great user experience. 50% of all searches are conducted on a mobile device, so let's try to keep that user experience really easy and adding in a place where they can either find your business quickly or call you straight away. So those are two things that people are doing on their smartphones, so that's, you know, things to keep in mind. Also, if you've got an optimized mobile site, it actually helps with your organic SEO as well. So that's another reason why you want to actually make sure it's optimized. So Googling My Business, if you don't have a Google My Business account, that's on my list, I think, of the 5 things to do today. So definitely do that one. Biggest advantage is the fact that Google My Business has local searches. So if you wanted to put in like pharmacy for London, Ontario, for example, all of those relevant businesses would come up, and you rank higher if you've got a Google My Business account. As well as if you've got more reviews, you'll go higher as well. So let's keep in mind updating that information with relative frequency and making sure it is always up to date. So my top 5 things, I want you to add the days you need to post to your calendar. So that's 1. 2, I want you to have a plan for what you want to feature. So let's go and double check that you've got stock of those things that you want to feature, because you don't want to set yourself up or your customers for disappointment. I want you to communicate with your customers and push your socials as the best way to communicate right now. That's unless you have access to your website and you're able to do frequent posts to your website to keep customers and clients engaged and informed on the latest practices. Revive your LinkedIn profile, especially those who are working in a B2B world, in addition to creating a business page. If you haven't created a business page, I really encourage you to do that. And I want you to try new things. So like we talked about, with socials, I think it's a great way of catapulting into trying out new platforms or looking at features on some of the social platforms that you haven't tried before and capitalizing on those to ensure you're really leveling up and you're going to be set when things get back to normal. So thank you so much for staying with us and watching that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I love to chat about this stuff, and I could talk for hours on it. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you, Allison. Before I kind of just do a quick recap here, but some things that I quickly learned out, being relevant, being intentional, planting the seed for future business, and I love the ask. Like I think I've done that more in the last year, just asking what our clients is, and what better time now to do that. Especially during this time, what do they need from you to support them? So that's amazing. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you have for Allison particularly. If anybody has any questions, just to drop them in the Q&A. Or you can reach out to her after. So with that,
good. That means I covered it all, right?
I know, that's amazing. There was a lot of content, a lot of good tidbits of information. So I know even through this, Allison has been able to help get our following. There's a question here in 1 second. Is there a recording of this access? Absolutely. I'll send it out to everybody that's registered to this so that you can refer back to any content. And again, if you want to reach out to Allison directly or reach out to Consys, and we'll get you in contact with her. The other thing, just within our Consys umbrella, we have Consys Group, our managed IT services. We have Rhino Security and Cabling, and then the extension of the Creative Co. with Allison. So we kind of really want to have everything under one umbrella, so it's a one-stop shop. We provide security, trust, and confidence with our clients. And this allows us to, with these webinars, this is really where it's driven from, especially right now. We want to be able to provide other content that's outside of the IT or technology that might be able to add some assistance to support your small business. If you want to flip to the next slide, Allison. This is just a little recap of some of the things I've posted in the last couple webinars, just about our security assessment. We're getting a lot of interest, and I just wanted to revisit this because people are taking this time now to really look at their networking, their IT, just as it relates to a risk assessment. It's a great time to look at that now, just while there's maybe some downtime or some free time. And we can really go in, obviously this is very detailed, not going into everything. We really want to make sure that as the cybersecurity landscape changes, that your business is always going to be protected. And you can just flip to the next slide. So we have some free resources as well. We have partnered with a lot of the IT leaders in the industry, specifically Dell and Forti as our security and IT. But we work with all of them. So we are offering free IT security assessments, layered security solutions, a free dark web scan. I know we covered that in a couple last webinars. So if you want to know what your email is, if you haven't already, reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to do a scour of the dark web. And we also offer some training and phishing simulations. And you can also really support us. Thank you, Allison, to keep reminding me on this too. So support us. How you're liking these webinars, and thank us for hosting these webinars on a Facebook or Google review. That'll allow us to support our small business. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'll end it off there, and feel free to reach out to us at any time. Even for second opinions, we're here to help you, okay? Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.